Hi! It's been a while since I've been on camera here. I have a script. I will try to adhere to it as best as possible. But here we go. I have a video for everyone. Hi. You can call me Maxine or Max. Max92, that's the channel here, if you haven't been here before. This isn't my typical kind of content, but I have this standing backdrop now, so maybe I'll make more videos like this. I don't know. But today it's kind of story time, because I want to talk about something that I've experienced. So, growing up, I was this little black kid in like a rural area where most everyone I knew was white, even most of my family. I don't want to get too deep into my family history and all that, but there was this weird thing where I don't really feel like I was excluded from anything exactly, but it was made sure I understood that something was different about me. Not necessarily by my family, but, the people. I understood I was different because, at the very least, I was this black kid. Everyone else around me was white. So I knew that one thing, at least, made me different from anyone else. In a way, I was kind of sheltered from some types of like the more violent racism that you would come across because of sort of being in a white family, just sort of insulated me from a lot of that stuff. But I did still see that stuff, just because I was a black kid. Even if I have a much more complex ethnic background, it's just something that would always be there. That would I don't want to say hang over me, but I would get reactions from people that were certain ways, and people would say certain things about me that they wouldn't say about other people, or interact with me in ways that they wouldn't interact with other people. So the older I got, the more I sort of noticed these things, the more that I came to understand them a little bit, and so it was just something that I lived with. I was different for one reason or another, and that was that. While I was still somewhat sheltered from the more brutal aspects of school social life because I made the right friends at the right time, and those lasted me into parts of my life where bullying would have been like a problem for a little feminine black boy, I guess. But I was still kind of on the fringes of, the school social things. I was touching all these different little cliques, but I wasn't really fully in any of them myself. I was just sort of near them. And it didn't help that I wasn't really into dating. I didn't really like big social gatherings like parties. I didn't go to any dances. I went to one dance. I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to homecoming. I didn't go to anything like that. I didn't go to football games. I didn't go to school social things. I did some sports, mostly cross country, and I was, I think I was about it. I don't think there was any clubs, really. I wasn't a club. I did some sports. I was in a club in later high school. I just didn't, do those things. I only really kept a small group of very close friends, often only really interacting with two at most people at a given time, having 2, 3. That was about it for my little social circle. And while I found myself with those loose connections to all these different people and all these different social cliques, it was just superficial. And I didn't really understand how I got there exactly. I didn't feel like I was doing anything different than anyone else was. So I wasn't sure how that happened. Like I said, I just knew I was different. I was different from everyone else, and this reason, or whatever. And I tried not to think too much about it, because to an extent, there wasn't anything I could do about it. So I just made the most out of what I had, Something changed, though, midway through high school. I experienced a couple pieces of media. I'm not going to admit to either of them. I experienced a couple pieces of media that made me realize that I was conceptually into romance. You know, I didn't. Up to this point, it was something that largely made me uncomfortable. But suddenly, in like this, it was like the summer between 10th and 11th grade. I was like, oh, I'm into this as a concept. I just don't like any of the people around me exactly. And as I explored this, what I kind of realized though is, even though, yeah, I was interested in women romantically, it didn't seem to line up with how my peers were, like my guy friends were into women. It felt different. I was attracted to the same things, but the way I felt about it was different. Put a pin in that for later. At the time, I didn't have anyone to really compare against except for those guy friends. I didn't really keep girlfriends because of that whole not being interested in romance, and people will like push that stuff on you as a kid. Like, people will like romanticize your relationships when you're very young, and it made me uncomfortable, and I didn't want to deal with it, so I stopped hanging out with girls. Not the best choice, but moving on to the next part of this script. Yep, that was in there. And so I took this new interest in romance and largely kind of set it aside. I didn't really try to do anything about it for a while. It was something on the back burner, and I came back to it once I got to college a little bit. What I did do in the interim was try to figure out how to talk about the things I was feeling, because I was feeling things. I had friends. We discoursed constantly. We would argue about politics. I cut my teeth arguing with teenage boys about politics, and it's really shaped the way that I am today. And so the earliest way that I figured out how to express my gender identity in words that I knew at the time, because I don't remember when exactly I learned the terms like transgender or whatever, but I would jokingly call myself a boy lesbian, because it was a way that I could be like, yeah, I guess I'm a boy, but I'm attracted to women in a way that seems more akin to how I see women relationships depicted. This makes sense to me as a like 16-year-old, and it was a joke. As I played around with that, I started to approach other questions and catalog some of those other ways I found I was different. I understood by this point I wasn't traditionally masculine in like personality or build or like all of these things. I was not a traditionally masculine person. And it wasn't something that bothered me personally, except for the fact that in that mid-late 2000s time, there was that whole thing where people were like, you're gay, as a derogatory thing, and being feminine was gay. And I didn't want people to think I was gay, because I didn't want people to think I was something to be derided. And so I kind of tried to hide some of the more feminine characteristics, or they made me uncomfortable in that way. A social dysphoria, you might say. It's really, really silly looking back on that to be like, oh no, I hope I'm not gay. Oh god, I'm very gay. I think my questioning came to a head in a conversation I remember having with someone where they suggested I might be trans. I remember my answer to that. Something like, well, no. Let me get the voice. Well, no, because I don't really think I want to be a woman either. And that was where I would sit for a while, because I hadn't learned the term non-binary yet. We would get there eventually. In the last bits of my time of high school, I found myself in my first online friend group, and my first experimentations with romance. It wasn't really like relationship, but it was learning things, you know, the sort of holding hands on the playground kindergarteners do. Neither of those things lasted particularly long, and the collapse of that friend group and the absolute nightmare that was my first job after graduation were the catalyst for me realizing maybe my mental health isn't very good. And I have severe depression and anxiety, which I would eventually find my way into treatment for, but we're not there yet. However, I mostly just set that aside. Like I said, not there yet. This was the version of me that hit college. Rattled from realizing mental health stuff was something that I experienced. In a closet of my own making, because I didn't know words yet. Well, I don't know if I'd say my own making, but in a closet of a couple closets, and trying to be something. I went into college kind of wanting to reinvent myself a little. I wanted to be a bit more social. I wanted to maybe try dating. I was going from my rural town, the rural area I came from, to a big city, and the world was my oyster. I still wasn't really interested in, big social gatherings or any of that kind of stuff that much, but I wanted to try a little more than I had in the past. It wouldn't really work past freshman year. But I, like many people, didn't really know what I was getting into with college. My depression and anxiety would get worse over the next year. Between the outcome of the 2016 election, news, fear-mongering, my own struggles to keep up with this new type of education, and the decision to isolate myself in a one-person dorm for 2 of my 4 years of college, there was a lot that started to weigh on me. I think the lowest point was during my sophomore year of college. I was isolated. I hadn't really put together how I asked for help. I was struggling with all these things. I wouldn't be into therapy for any of them for like another year. It was rough, but it wasn't all bad. I found myself in my second online friend group. Many of those people I still talk to daily. I was in a band with some of my buddies back home. Eventually, I even got myself a really cool girlfriend who I'm still with to this day. She's great. I love her. I think that point was when things really started to change, though. It was nearly 7 years ago that I finally put some things together about myself. I can't remember exact dates, but somewhere in 2018, the swirl of rarely voiced feelings, jokes among friends, and the general discontent with life that had lingered with me since some time in high school had finally met with a space where people listened, were accepting, and had words that helped me understand a few things. Over the next 5 years, I went to therapy, came out to some people, bought myself clothes that I felt nice in, started experimenting and cataloging new terms that felt correct. Got a laundry list of them these days. If you want a hint, I point you to my coming out post that it's on the channel somewhere. There's a screenshot right there. Have a look at that. However, I wasn't sure how far I wanted to take things at first. I was figuring out who I was, what that meant, and what I should do about it. And I'm honestly still not sure where the end is or if there is one. But eventually, I found myself wondering whether or not some amount of medical transition was what I wanted. I mulled over the idea for years. I've long been uncomfortable with the idea of being on medications, but found myself increasingly facing a reality where I probably needed to be on something. Probably need to be on more things to help with some of the other things that I deal with. I was severely depressed. I was an anxious mess. I still am those things, but back then I just also struggled to feel. I struggled to be present. I didn't feel like myself. So eventually, I finally convinced myself I wanted to try hormone replacement therapy, but it would still take me another year to actually do it. Then, one day, too anxious to use the phone, I went to a clinic in person. My girlfriend had a doctor's appointment in the area, so it was like, okay, I'll just pop over here while she's having her appointment and make my own. The appointment was a success, and the next day, 2 years ago, on February 13th, 2023, I finally started HRT. This was one of the best decisions of my life. Potentially the best decision of my life. I can feel things now, good and bad, sure, but the immense emptiness I used to have inside of me, the apathy that I used as a shield because if I cared too much, I might have to do something, it's gone now, for the most part. I can express myself. It's still new and weird, and I'm getting the hang of it, but being true to oneself is such freedom. The script ends there, so we're gonna wing it from here on out. If you are someone who is questioning, and you're not sure what you want to do, and you're not sure what to do, and you're scared because it's a scary time, just ask. Just do research, find community. There are people out there who can probably help you figure out what to do with your situation. And I would recommend, if you're someone who experiences some kind of dysphoria, you might want to do these things. You might want to transition. It's grand. I'm having a great time over here, actually, despite everything going on in the world, how scary it is right now. I love the changes that have come to my body over this process of hormone therapy. I don't think I want any surgeries or anything like that, but just the hormones has just, it's on its own improved my life quality immensely. I already used the word immensely. I am in such a better place than I was before even starting hormones. Like, I still have struggles unrelated to gender stuff, but I do not regret this choice. My only regret involving my transition is that I didn't get to it sooner. That I didn't have the knowledge to know these things sooner. That I didn't have the access to start these things sooner. The support system to where I felt like I could do these things sooner. I mean, I can't say I didn't have a support system, but I didn't feel like I had access to that support system because of masculinity nonsense that I can't say I've fully shaken, but I have shaken more than enough at this point. I don't know where else to go from here. That's I think the big thing is I wish I transitioned sooner. I wish that I had realized myself long ago. I wish I wasn't going through puberty at my mid-20s, and instead was doing this during puberty times or in my earlier 20s or my late teens or something. I wish I could have known to transition sooner. But I transitioned when I did, and it was, again, I think, probably the best choice of my entire life. So far. I still have life ahead of me, but I am myself now in a way that I didn't used to be. And that is wonderful. I think that's the end of that part. This wasn't what I planned for my first video of the year, but with the state of things in the US, I felt like this is what I wanted to put out in the world first for 2025 on the Max92 channel. This video was originally intended to be more involved with costume changes and stuff, but I was, those other mental health things I talked about. That's a little big for my britches for how little I want to do content creation. I'm not super big on being on camera anymore. Even though I look great these days, I really think I look so much better than I used to. I'm not big on presenting to camera. I'm not big on being the sort of Max 92 persona the way that I used to be. That's why I've been posting a lot more on the second channel, which I mentioned sometimes. You can go check that out. There were other things that I wanted to make before this that, like I said, that didn't come out yet. I still plan on having them come out, but yeah, I feel like I had another thing I wanted to say here at the end, but I don't remember. And I've been rambling for like 20 something minutes, and I have to edit this so that it goes out, because it is, just so we're on the same page. It is the 12th, and in that script that I wrote and what I said earlier, I allude to the fact that this video is going up on the 13th of February. It's the 12th of February, so I kind of gotta edit this. So I should say goodbye. Thank you for sticking around for this whole weird video for my channel. If you are if you're not subscribed, subscribe. I make things here. Subscribe to the second channel, actually. You can subscribe to this one if you want to. The second channel will probably be posting more. I have things I want to get out this year for this channel, but we'll see, because it's taken me a lot of brain effort to get here on camera for this video, so I don't know about that. We'll see. Subscribe, like the video if you liked it. Support trans people. Yeah, it's a bad time. So show your support by subscribing and liking the video, and I will link some of my favorite trans content creators in the description or something. I don't know. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming around and watching this, like I said. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye! Cut!